So good morning. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're here at the State House in Augusta to talk about what's working for Maine. Talking about clean energy investments that are lowering costs, they're creating good jobs and building a stronger economy. I am Scott Cuddy. I'm a business agent for IBEW Local 1253. I've been a construction electrician since 2005, and I served 2 terms in the legislature. Renewable energy is a really important topic for me. I have 2 kids. They're 14 and 17. And I made a commitment to myself some years ago that I was not going to leave them a world that was on fire. And really the way in which we can do that is by electrifying our economy, and we're going to need renewable energy in order to do that, and we're going to need a lot of it. Across Maine, the federal energy tax credits that are in place have been supporting real projects that are employing real people here in the state of Maine at jobs where they can support a family. The credits have helped to launch and sustain jobs for electricians, millwrights, laborers, workers all across the building trades with union standards that ensure fair pay and training. These are the kinds of careers too that let people stay in the state of Maine, that let them work close to home. You can't outsource constructing these projects. These jobs are being done primarily by Mainers and for Mainers. But all this progress that we've made so far is at risk. If we roll back these tax credits, energy bills can go up, projects can stall, and we will lose jobs. Another thing that we've been doing by having this economy come through is we've been building the workforce that we all know we're going to need in the future. We don't have enough tradespeople right now. The best way to get tradespeople is to give tradespeople a place to go to work. And we have been doing that with renewable energy that has been supported by these federal tax credits. So we're here to say today that Maine cannot afford to go backward. Congress needs to protect these credits and keep investing in working people. You'll hear today from folks who know these issues firsthand. They have worked on these job sites. They are building our solar and wind projects, and they are training the next generation of the workers that we're going to need and fighting for fair policy. To lead us off today, I'm very proud to introduce somebody who brings both the workers' voice and the legislator's voice to this conversation. Kilton Webb is a lifelong Mainer. He's a proud member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 567, my sister local here in the state. And he is a state representative for District 98, which is weird because I represented District 98 and it was in a completely different part of the state when I did that. So you can see that Maine really has our stuff figured out. So please, welcome Kilton Webb.
Thank you, Scott, for the introductions. This is going to sound a little bit familiar. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kilton Webb. I'm a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 567, out of Lewiston and Portland. I'm a state representative for House District 98 and a lifelong Mainer. Growing up here in Maine, I always enjoyed playing outside and being in nature. From swimming in the summer, running cross country in the fall, building snow forts in the winter, and enjoying those first few muddy hikes in the spring. I love being outside and I love being in nature. Today we have an existential threat in climate change that threatens those very hobbies that an untold number of Mainers, like myself, enjoy every year. Up until recently, our efforts to address climate change have not been nearly enough. Historically, it's been challenging to get construction and manufacturing workers and conservation and climate activists to come together to make a real action plan. Our climate and conservation activists understandably advocate for the climate and environment, while construction workers like myself need to build things to make our living. That's how we pay our bills and provide for our families. This tension has led to decades of hurt feelings, few tangible results, and our eyes taken off what really matters. Instead of fighting climate change, we fight amongst ourselves, getting nothing done in the process. In recent years, we've made great strides in aligning our climate and conservation goals with our manufacturing and clean energy needs. The Inflation Reduction Act was a landmark piece of legislation that catalyzed this alignment, investing nearly $1 trillion into the United States and billions of dollars here in Maine. But that's at the high level. What matters to me is the personal, the human level. I began my career as an electrician in 2018, where my first job as an electrician was on a solar field in Kennebunk. The job was great, but as construction workers like to say, we worked ourselves out of a job and it was on to the next. I went on to work on several projects around the state. A municipal building in Scarborough, Maine Veterans Home in Augusta, Abbott Labs over in Westbrook. But my career took a change for the better when the colossal investments in clean energy kicked in and took things to the next level. I traveled from town to town, site to site, building dozens of solar fields all around the state for around 2 years. While working on these projects, I was able to put myself in a position to succeed. I was able to pay off some debt. I was able to get the hours needed to become a journeyman electrician. And I was even able to buy the home that I live in today. Mainers like myself from across the state have benefited from the jobs created by these important investments. From ironworkers building wind farms in Aroostook County, to electricians installing battery plants in Lincoln and Gorham, and the many solar fields spread throughout our state where laborers, operating engineers, and electricians have worked countless hours together in the service of clean and independent energy. The results are clear. These investments work and they keep Mainers like me working for a better future. Congressman Golden, Congresswoman Pingree, Senator King, and Senator Collins, I'm here today to ask for your support in keeping the clean energy investments intact and protected. Protecting untold thousands of jobs, building America's manufacturing capabilities, and working towards true energy independence for a greener tomorrow. I want to close with a challenge to everyone with us today. It's something simple, it's something we can all do. I challenge you to join me in pushing our federal delegation in protecting these investments. May it be by phone, text, or email. Every bit, every attempt, every action made at being heard matters and adds up. And together, we're stronger. Thank you for your time and thank you for having me.
Put my eyes back on. Next, I'm going to be introducing Chad Ward. Chad's going to come up and speak to us for a little bit. Chad Ward is a 21-year Ironworkers Local 7 member, and he's worked on a number of clean energy projects. Please welcome Chad to come on up and give us a little bit about his experience as a union worker.
Good morning, everybody. As he said, my name is Chad Ward. I was born in Belfast, Maine. I reside in Thorndike, Maine now. I have not moved far from where I was born. I love the state of Maine and everything it has to offer. I have been a I started out local 496 in 2003, and then we moved on to local 7. I've been an iron worker for 21 years. The union's impact on my life and my family. I was able to build a home and buy the land out of my pocket. I had no payments. This was a huge impact on my family. I was able to raise my 3 kids, or in the process of raising my 3 kids. I've had to travel for work because there really wasn't much work around my home in Waldo County. I have had to travel out of state. I have missed ball games, number of birthdays. Thank God I have an understanding family. I currently am employed by Titan Structural Group. We are working on an offshore wind project in Virginia for Dominion Energy. I have a son, as I mentioned. I have my children. He is 16 years old, and he is more than likely going to follow the same path that I have followed. And I would love nothing more than my son to be able to stay close to home. I do not want my family to move out of state to find better work. This is a call for action for the lawmakers. We need the people making decisions about funding energy projects to listen to real working people like me. Keep investing in clean energy projects. Support the workers who are doing these projects with good wages and union protections, which I have benefited personally from myself. I am the first generation union worker in my family. And with that being said, I'm sure I will not be the last. If Washington, D.C. shoots down the clean energy tax credits, projects that are creating jobs and reducing costs to ratepayers will come at a screeching halt. bring more clean energy jobs to Maine, and we will help younger generations stay in the state with good family-sustaining jobs. We can't afford to vote no on any clean energy investments. Like I was saying, I was able to support my family on my union wages. My union benefits are unmatched to anything else. I personally had to use them. I'm a very proud iron worker, 21 years, like I said. I plan on another good 17 years of service to the state of Maine through my trade. Like I said, we just simply cannot afford to vote no on these projects. I need to work at home. I have missed too much of my family growing up. And my daughters, I have 2 daughters, they are 11 and 9. And let me tell you from experience, when I have to FaceTime them and they're basically crying on the other end, wanting daddy home to eat supper with them. I would give nothing more to be able to come home every night to my family and eat dinner with them, simply talk about their day. Tell them about my day. The personal connection needs to be there. Like I said, we need to really invest in our future here in the state of Maine. We simply cannot allow this to go elsewhere or get shot down. I mean, like I said, I plan on doing this trade until I am 62 years old. I am 45 this year. So hopefully I can do this in the comfort of my own home, sleep in the comfort of my own bed. And with that being said, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Chad. And we thank Matt Beck and Kilton Webb for spending the time with us as they could today. Of course, when the bell rings, legislators have got to go. Lastly, my last part of this, I'm going to introduce my good friend Jason Shedlock to you. Jason comes out of Local 327. He wears more hats than there are heads in this room, but today he's going to be with us as the president of the Maine State Building and Construction Trades Council. Jason.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Brother Scott. As Scott said, my name is Jason Shedlock. I am the president of the Maine State Building and Construction Trades Council. We're a collection of 20 labor unions representing about 7,000 workers across the state. I'm also very proud to be a member of Local 327 of the Laborers International Union, based right here in Augusta, Maine, where I am a member, as well as Secretary Treasurer. Our business manager, Louis Overlock, is here as well. The reason why I'm here is for a couple of reasons. First is, we just heard the story from a brother from the iron workers. And the important takeaway for me is, as a dad of a 13-year-old daughter, I live in Portland, she goes to Portland Public Schools. When we have to leave the state, we have to leave our family to make a family-sustaining wage. It just doesn't seem right. You're trying to make a family-sustaining wage while missing a child's softball game, while missing church, while missing a partner's work event or something in the community. What these tax credits have done, and what we're elected to do as members of a labor union and leaders of a labor union is to represent our workers and make sure that we don't only help them get a job, but a career, which means stringing jobs together with labor standards that we can be proud of in the state of Maine, that reflect Maine values. Our representatives in Congress understand this, right? They're elected to represent the same people that I'm elected to represent. They're elected to represent my members. And I can tell you that they understand this. Congressman Golden has been a fighter for working families, has voted continuously to make sure that these types of projects are happening across the state so that we can not have to ship our own most valuable commodity, which is our workers, out of state so they can send money home. Congresswoman Pingree has been fighting for this. Senator King has been fighting for this. We all understand that we can talk about the nuance about whether it's a tax credit or it's for a solar or for a wind, and that's really important. At the end of the day, these are family-sustaining careers that we want to make sure that are continuing to happen. Because a job is momentary, right? We work ourselves out of a job, but we shouldn't be able to work ourselves out of a career. We work ourselves into a career, right? And that's what these types of tax credits do. Senator Collins understands this as well, whether it's helping at a battery storage facility to make sure projects go forth, or fighting for our federal workers. We're members of a labor union for a reason. We stick together, and we know that we need more workers. Brother Cuddy mentioned it very well as Representative Webb. The construction industry of today cannot look solely like me. We all know this. It's got to reflect the communities in which these individuals work. It's got to be open and available to everybody, because we are not going to be able to build and rebuild Maine by piecing together jobs. We need to rebuild Maine by making sure that we have sustainable careers. That's what this tax credit does. That's what these programs do to make sure that our members can work where they live. One of those members that I'm going to introduce now to come up and share her story, her name is Haley Lawrence. And once you hear from her, you'll understand why I'm so proud to be able to introduce her. And this will be the first time of many, Haley, that I think I'll be introducing you to speak in front of people, because the impact of human beings, right, on this legislation. We can talk about budgets, we can talk about LD numbers and committee hearings and everything, but if we're not always thinking about the human beings that we expect to build and rebuild our economy, the human beings that we expect to help us meet our climate goals, then we're missing the point. One of those human beings is Haley Lawrence. Haley Lawrence is a member of Local 327, the Laborers Union. Haley came to us through our pre-apprenticeship program and through our apprenticeship program, the pathway to the middle class that we all talk about in the labor movement, that is open and available to everyone. Haley is a proud member of 327. I know she's working for a company called Select Demo, which is a really good company that does projects throughout the state that we're proud to partner with. Haley's going to share a little bit of her story about why this is important to a young worker, and a worker that doesn't look like me, to be able to provide opportunities for them throughout the state and continue those opportunities. So Haley Lawrence, proud to have you up here, sister.
Hi, like you just said, my name's Haley Lawrence. So I kind of just want to go over my story a bit. So prior to getting into the pre-apprenticeship program and the apprenticeship program that I had just done, I was in fact living in my car. I had that parked in a Planet Fitness parking lot. I'd go in there and shower when I could, and I was living in my car. Didn't have much food with me or anything, wasn't working, couldn't find a job to stay with, had been bouncing around jobs. So then I heard about the pre-apprenticeship program. I did that program, made it through that, got out to work on a job doing solar work. The 2 days after I graduated, a month after that, I got my very own apartment with my name on the lease. That wasn't something I was expecting that I would ever do, especially at 20 years old, especially considering the fact that prior to that, I'd just been living in my car. Since all of that, I have gone to the apprenticeship program. I've been able to make all my payments on time. I'm able to support myself financially. To take away from all of that and not allow new people, a younger generation, more people that look like me, more females, more people that want to better their lives, to not be able to continue doing that and give people the chance that I got would be a mistake. So I personally believe that stories like mine should be more heard, so people understand like how important it is for the union to like continue going. And without jobs, more people can't continue to work. I personally believe that bringing more people in is only going to better the union, which is why we need more jobs to be available. Because like others had just spoken about, when there isn't other jobs to go to, you don't have that job security that the union provides. And that's a big part, which is why we know that higher ups right now are in support of that, and that's a great thing. But that's just part of my story. But my name's Haley Lawrence, and thank you for listening.
Well, we're at the end here. Just to wrap things up, my name is Francis Eanes. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Labor Climate Council. We are a coalition of labor unions here in the state of Maine fighting for a just transition for all workers and their communities as this once-in-a-generation energy transition transpires. Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers who are here today. Some of whom had to leave. Many of them had to take time off from work to be here, and we are really grateful for that. And it's because they know how important this message is for all of us to hear. Just to really emphasize, these clean energy tax credits, which have been in force now for more than 2 years, they are working. They're doing exactly what they were intended to do, lowering Mainers' energy bills, investing in good paying jobs for Mainers right here at home, and powering Maine with independent homegrown energy. Win, win, wins. Listen, right now, today, there are 145 more clean energy projects that are planned and ready to break ground. And they are depending on the certainty from Washington, D.C. to keep these clean energy tax credits going. We're talking about from Aroostook County down to York County, 9,000 potential jobs coming from these projects, right? $9 billion in investment here into our state, into our local economies. This is really meaningful. There's a lot at stake here over these next few weeks. And as Brother Cuddy said at the beginning, these are jobs across many different trades: millwrights, electricians, laborers, operating engineers, and on down the line, right? This is a huge lever, these tax credits, for driving forward not only the clean energy that we need here in Maine, but for really growing the pipeline of skilled tradespeople that we all so badly need, not just for clean energy, but for building and rebuilding our economy. At the end of the day, these clean energy tax credits have been critical for really making sure these are good jobs. The first time in history we've had the federal government say it's not just good enough to invest in clean energy, we want to make sure these are good jobs that invest in training the next generation of workers through registered apprenticeship programs. That's a big deal, and we want this to continue. Why we're here today is that right now, and for the next few weeks and possibly months, lawmakers in DC are going to be debating the future of these clean energy tax credits as the federal budget reconciliation process continues. And we might get lost in the weeds of which committee's doing what, whether it's something's in the House or in the Senate. At the end of the day, the choice is quite clear. Is Congress going to give tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires, or are they going to continue investing in not only Medicare and Medicaid and VA benefits that are critical backbones here in Maine, but also these clean energy tax credits that have been such a huge force for good that you've heard about today? We also know these clean energy tax credits is not just a union thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing. There has been bipartisan and remains bipartisan support for them. 26 congressional Republicans in both the House and the Senate have publicly signed on to letters saying they want these tax credits to continue. 2 in 3 Mainers, more than 2 in 3 Mainers, say they want them to continue. This is a bipartisan consensus. It's common sense. We're deeply grateful for the support that Congressman Golden, Congresswoman Pingree, Senator King gave when they voted for the Inflation Reduction Act 2.5 years ago. And we know that they will, along with Senator Collins, stand with us, stand with all of Maine in protecting these credits as this budget reconciliation process goes forward. But listen, at the end of the day, like, the twin crises of climate change and runaway inequality are not going to be tackled by themselves. No one thing is going to fix this, but these tax credits have been critical at bringing together good jobs, a just transition for workers and communities, and tackling the most important existential crisis of our time, to transition to clean energy. We are grateful for the support of our congressional delegation. We're standing here today thanking them for that support so far and calling on them to stand with us as this fight really heats up over the next weeks and months. It's good for us, it's good for all of Maine, and at this point we want to open this up for any questions for any of our speakers here today, and we're also happy to make them available for one-on-one interviews with you all. Thank you all. Thanks for being here.
Couple different people talked about having to leave the state for work. Is there any problem with actually a shortage of trades workers here in the state? I know we're trying to tackle it with stuff like free community college and stuff like that, but is that also a concern at the state level?
We do not have a shortage of workers. We have a shortage of really good jobs, and I think these tax credits have been really raising the bar on employers to make that happen. To be clear, the registered pre-apprenticeship program that Haley talked about, which has been a critical pipeline into apprenticeship programs, which are earn while you learn, essentially free college on the job, learning from a skilled tradesperson. These are proven models of workforce development. But that program that Haley talked about has been oversubscribed with 5 times as many folks wanting to come into that program as there have been spots. We can grow that with more employers coming to the table and building partnerships with our apprenticeship programs. So there's all kinds of opportunity here. I'm happy to let Jason jump in.
Yeah, just to speak to that, Haley mentioned that she graduated the pre-apprenticeship program. Literally, she was in our office the next day with a couple of other graduates, and she went to work on Monday. They graduated on a Thursday, interviewed on a Friday, went to work on a Monday. Because those jobs were there, she went to work on a solar job that was funded by the IRA and funded by these clean energy tax credits. That's the A to B. You don't have to wait for a time release victory there. That is when you put somebody through a training and they work their ass off in the training and then they go to work on Monday. That's the way it's supposed to work. Without that continuity, Haley may have to be looking for a job somewhere else to use the training that she just got. So as Francis said, the continuity of this and literally the cause and effect is very, very clear to see. And we have someone who embodies that here with us today. So.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, if say these get cut, are you looking at a slowdown? Are you looking at no? I mean, why are these so critical to building clean energy projects like solar and wind, et cetera?
Look, I can speak to the fact that ask any one of the business managers who are in the room today or not in the room, and they can tell you that, look, I know some of our electricians unions have gone from seeing a 5-year work picture where they could see 5 years of work because of planned projects that were scheduled to go in 26, 27, 28, has shrunk back to 1, and that's largely because of, and they do all work beyond clean energy too, by the way, but that's largely because of developers putting on hold the start date of projects because they all have contractual commitments to whoever's buying the power, and if those numbers change about assumptions of whether these credits or not are available, they'll have to go back and renegotiate those contracts. And again, chances are those increased costs will get passed on to ratepayers. That's not in any Mainer's interest here. So will the projects happen? Potentially. Some may just get canceled altogether, some may get delayed, but at the end of the day, what we have seen is more projects have gotten built in the last couple of years because of these tax credits. We hear time and time again from developers that they're all putting these things on pause while they wait and see how this plays out in DC. I think any business will tell you that uncertainty is the biggest challenge they face, and all they want to know is, what are the rules of the game going to be? There was transformative legislation passed 2.5 years ago. The rules of the game were clear then. They've been working. I think everybody wants to know that this will continue.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, this isn't happening in a silo either, right? So whether it's developers or general contractors, we're dealing with the uncertainty of tariffs. We're dealing with the uncertainty of the job market. We're dealing with uncertainty of the economy. You know, when somebody blinks twice, the market goes down by 1,000, and 3 times it goes back up by 500. We don't know what's going to happen from day to day, but we do know this. When budgets get crunched for projects, the first place people look to save money is the labor line. So to balance the budget on the backs of the very workers that developers and general contractors and subcontractors rely on to make a profit is never good. It's not good for the worker, union or non-union. You know, this is a sort of, you know, the cliche of the rising tide lifts all boats. We're putting in common sense labor standards along with this funding to say, hey, listen, if you're going to use taxpayer funds, right, we want to make sure that the workers that you're putting to work to build and rebuild Maine, to make sure that we meet our climate goals, are making a wage that they can invest and be their singular economic engines in their own communities rather than spending their money in Massachusetts and South, right? So when these projects get paused, we have to look elsewhere to make sure our workers go to work, and that's difficult. The worst thing that we get as representatives of a union is a worker saying, I can't buy a Christmas present, or I can't buy a birthday present because I've been out of work and I need to string some work together. What kind of work do you have for me? Well, I was gonna send you to the solar job, but it's on pause right now. We're seeing what we can do. So this has real impacts for individuals, as Francis said.
So is that a way of saying that, you know, Maine being a rural state without like some of these capital investments that you might see elsewhere, would be disproportionately affected if these tax credits went away? We've heard a lot about people having to leave the state, go find work elsewhere.
I think that's probably true. When we know that we could put somebody to work on a Monday who interviews on a Friday, and we know that that isn't able to happen, whether it's a 50-person job, a 100-person job, you know, and in the hundreds of people, then we have to kind of search for something else, right? We're not Boston, we're not Chicago, we're not Philadelphia. You know, we see development happening across the state, but we don't see the standards in place to make sure that the workers can actually make a family-sustaining life and have a career. So will we be disproportionately impacted? What I know is that our members are going to find it harder to get work. And at the end of the day, those are the human beings that we want to make sure can buy those birthday presents and those Christmas presents. So that's what I'm most concerned about. I know our business manager and the rest of us are as well.
I'll just, Pete, to your question, I think this is a national issue, right? I mean, projects are being put on pause everywhere. I think what we know for certain, though, is based on the project announcements, project plans, permits that are, you know, in the project pipeline, right? If you look at across the region of ISO New England, our regional grid, Maine has by far the greatest capacity for generating new projects. And that's in part because of the geographic size of our state compared to other New England states, because of how rural we are with relatively lower population density, because of our world-class onshore and of course offshore wind resources. So there's a lot of factors at play, but at the end of the day, yes, Maine will be disproportionately hit by this national slowdown and pause, and certainly if these tax credits go away, it would be disproportionately hit relative to other New England states.
I mean, I'll keep going.
Keep going.
Just, I guess some could say, you know, if these projects can't stand up on their own without government support, then, you know, why don't these workers go to work building gas pipelines or power plants or something like that? Like, what would your response be to that?
Look, it's a fair question. All of our energy systems, ever since we've had, you know, some kind of federal planning, and have been subsidized, right? This has been true for our legacy, oil, gas, and other forms of fossil fuel, and it's true for clean energy. I don't think it's fair to say we're just, these tax credits, by the way, apply to nuclear, they apply to hydropower, they apply to, like, it's essentially an all of the above approach, saying, look, we need to increase significantly the amount of emissions-free energy we are producing, full stop. And I think it's clear that every other energy source that we brought online, whether it was oil, whether it was coal, all these things involve massive federal and state investment to scale these. And I think this is no different for clean energy. But look, the reality is, like, the world is changing. This energy transition is happening, and the question is Maine going to be, and is the United States going to be a leader in this, or are we going to sit back and watch this transition happen elsewhere and be left behind? That's the fundamental question, and I think there's all kinds of good sense that these clean energy tax credits, as they were designed, maybe not perfect, have been really meaningful and are by far the biggest lever that our country and certainly our state can pull and benefit from.
In the material you handed out, you mentioned how tax credits can help lower costs for ratepayers. Could you just give a sentence or two kind of expanding on that idea and talking about how it, benefits workers? We've heard a lot about that, but then how it also translates to ratepayers.
Absolutely. Well, at the end of the day, the way that any developer of an energy project of any kind makes their money is by selling that power to a utility, to any other off-taker who then sells the power to businesses, residents, any other user of energy. And the price of that power is going to be dependent on whatever that generator thinks they can get and whatever their costs are. These tax credits essentially say the federal government will provide up to 30% of the costs of the project as a tax credit. So they can reduce the cost of their entire project by up to 30%, especially if they use prevailing wage and registered apprenticeship. That's a meaningful savings that they then pass then on to the utility and ultimately onto all of us who pay electricity bills. If those go away, those generators either will find they have to renegotiate their contracts or will have to somehow pass on increased costs to all of us. That's really what's at stake. There was a study that came out about a month ago that showed nationally that costs to electric ratepayers would go up 17% if these clean energy tax credits go away. And that's real money. That's real money in people's pockets. And happy to get you the source. I know they broke it out by state. And if I'm misstating it, it might have been 10% nationally and 17% in Maine. But it's meaningful. It's not a insubstantial amount of money that will get passed on to all of us.
I think the other thing that I would add to that is a little further down the line, if people think that we have a labor shortage now, if we don't invest in job training and meaningful job training to make sure we do have the women and men to build and rebuild Maine's future, things are going to be even more expensive as we move forward, right? So when we talk about very modest registered apprenticeship requirements, I'm pleased to be serving as the chair of the Maine Apprenticeship Council. Obviously, I'm here in my capacity as a union rep and a building trades president. But we know that we need to make sure that we have the builders of tomorrow. And that's what these programs are doing, right? They're putting in place benchmarks. And by the way, our friends in the environmental movement, and I say that with full honesty, they understand that if we're going to move forward on building these projects, we need to make sure they're built right the first time, right? You lose the hearts and minds of Mainers when you build something and whether it's a rebuild or it costs double, we have to redo it. It doesn't realize the savings that we say, and Mainers are going to be quick to say, "I told you so," right? So we know that it's important to work together to build these right the first time. So all that goes into that cost picture, both now, in the medium, and the long term, to be able to afford to continue the transition in a way that folks will be able to work and do it right here in Maine.
I got one more. Is there anything that could replace these either at the state level or the local level, TIFs, something similar like that? I mean, how, is there kind of backstop it could be?
There's no one-for-one replacement for this. I mean, like, no one has the buying and moving power that the federal government has. That said, I think that the state certainly historically and today is engaged in its own form of policymaking to drive the clean energy transition in Maine. So there's a bill that will be coming up for a hearing here in the next couple of weeks that will be revising our current statutory requirement to get to 100% clean electricity by 2040. That's 10 years sooner than current law requires. That's a huge driver of the market. What it doesn't do, and the difference between that and the federal tax credits, is provide the kind of financial incentive that we've been talking about today. What'll happen is whatever the cost of the energy is will get passed on to ratepayers. It's an important and critical standard, and I can't emphasize enough how important, especially today, state targets are. They've driven a huge amount of this market, but at the end of the day, it's the investment that the federal government has through the tax credit power that states just can't replace, certainly overnight, though they can and should be thinking about how to do this for the long term.
So in the state of Maine, the reason why we're able to see such a quick turnaround benefit of these investments is that we didn't just start from scratch when the IRA was passed. We had policies and benchmarks in place in the state of Maine. Former Representative Cuddy was fundamental and critical to putting in benchmarks at the statewide level when there's state assistance in place, right? Former Senator Chloe Maxman, other representatives in the room were critical at this. You know, we had these benchmarks in place for state-supported programs back when IRA meant a retirement account. And by the way, don't look at your retirement accounts on a day-to-day basis. Trust me. But that's really important to understand, because we were able to pivot from policy that lawmakers agree with here in the state of Maine. You know, that Jared Golden agrees with, that Shelley Pingree agrees with, that Angus King agrees with, and that Susan Collins also agrees with, and that we want to make sure we have a pipeline of workers moving forward. So we didn't click go the day that the president signed, President Biden signed the IRA. We're moving in that direction, but as Francis said, the injection into that process and the federal investment just actually helped us operationalize that in a way that makes impacts for people like Haley and others, and our brother in the iron workers.
Any other questions? Yeah,
Have you
go for it.
guys reached out to the delegation or gotten any specific responses from them about if they're committed to protecting these? I mean, obviously we know about their initial votes for the IRA, but have you heard from them recently about this?
You want to go ahead?
I mean, I think it's an evolving question. I think it's very clear, you know, Congressman Golden, Congresswoman Pingree both voted against the budget reconciliation resolution a couple of weeks ago. That's what gives both caucuses instructions to go back and actually negotiate the reconciliation bill. That's a really critical first step. We're, you know, very grateful for them. Certainly in the House, we know that Senator King voted against the resolution on the Senate side. I think there's a lot of game to be played out here. I know, you know, Congressman Golden's been very clear in saying does not want to see any cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, does not want to see tax cuts continued for millionaires and billionaires, and we're deeply grateful for that and feel very confident that he'll continue to stand with us, just like he did with the Inflation Reduction Act when it was passed 2.5 years ago.
My notes say the same thing?
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.